What is a good technique in chess in converting a winning position? In this video, I will show you 6 tools to improve your technique and smoothly converting your advantages. Are you ready, folks? I will stop at the key moments and ask you to stop the video and find those simple winning plans. Black has a completely winning position, but I want you to find the simplest technique in converting this position. Let's discuss what do we mean by simplest technique. To my mind, it's about reducing counterplay as soon as possible, keep it simple and stupid, and don't engage in needless calculation, don't give needless counterplay to the opponent. That's what comes to my mind first when I think about good technique in converting an advantage in chess. For example, here, the pawn on f4 is hanging. Black can take the pawn on f4. But what if I told you that there's a much simpler move in this position that completely paralyzes the white pieces and gives black all the time in the world to win the game quietly? And it's about noticing the alignment in the white pieces. The rook is loose, the knight on f2 can be pinned, and the move is rook f3, folks. Can you see? Black ignores capturing the free pawn on f4 because that pawn is not going anywhere, and that also connects to the technique part. You can always take that pawn on the next turn. What black is doing with this move is they are paralyzing the white pieces. Okay? Please look at the function of that rook. Now no white piece can move. This knight is pinned, cannot move. The rook has to guard the knight as well. Suddenly, we have a much simpler position to convert. And yes, you have all the time in the world right now to take the pawn on f4, then take the pawn on h3, pp on the pp, and win this game as simple as possible. Right, I can give you some moves. White has no other moves but the king move. Knight takes f4, now you take the pawn, king d2, take the pawn, right? pp on the pp. White has no fight left in its position. Here, tell me the most simplest way to win this position is black, please. No calculation necessary. The answer is this. You transition to a pawn endgame. Why? Because black has basically 2 extra pawns, and those are beautifully distant passed pawns. And then just push the pawn to d3. The black king cannot deal with both pawns. That's a very beautiful chess pattern as well, right? Distant passed pawns cannot be stopped by the single king, and now they are rolling and they are promoting to a queen. Going back to this position, folks, can you see? Once you see rook f3, the solution becomes so obvious. You win in a very simple way, with minimal calculation, minimal counterplay. White at no times gain any counterplay in the position. Instead, if you impulsively take the pawn on f4, this is still winning for black, of course. But now you need to calculate some lines, because now the knight on f4 is loose, there's a loose pawn on f5, there's also a loose pawn on f7. Suddenly, that rook will gain some activity as a result of your pawn grab. Can you see it? For example, moves like knight d1 must be checked. White attacks those targets on the f-file. Now you need to be a little bit careful, Knight takes h3 is a good move. After rook takes f5, you play knight g5, defend the pawn. But even here, it gets a bit murky to calculate, right? Just check. There are a couple of checks in the position that you must be careful of. Maybe a4 is coming at some point, right? Maybe a4 is coming, and if you take, they will go b5. Now you must worry about the push b6, b7, and so on. Suddenly, you need to calculate some lines in this position. So compare and contrast what we just saw with the move rook f3. Once you give yourself choices, once you actively ask yourself, how do I minimize counterplay? How do I paralyze the opponent's pieces? Then this move appears to your mind naturally. Sometimes pawns act like marshmallows. People cannot resist taking those pawns directly, and also that's what we are learning in today's episode, right? Especially if those pawns are frozen like long-term weaknesses that they cannot be guarded in long term anyway. There is no rush. You should not rush grabbing pawns, because then you can give some activity to the opponent's pieces. White to play in this position. Lesson number 2 again. How would you convert this position as simple as possible with white pieces? White has a queen for rook and a bishop, plus they have these 2 connected passed pawns on the king side. So obviously, with best play, white should be able to convert this position. That's what we are seeing from this position. But if you're careless, you can give counterplay to the opponent. Please take a moment, stop the video. Imagine you're playing in the actual game, clock is ticking. How would you play this position with the white pieces, folks? I will give you the first prompt. The question always in a winning position is, Am I giving something to the opponent? More care is required. Even like more defensive mindset is required, because the last thing you want here is chaos and some counterplay for the opponent, right? So ask yourself, black has more pawns on the queen side. Can they somehow create a pass pawn on the queen side? That's the question, right? Because naturally, majority can roll, and that can give them one more, let's say, asset. Because right now they have these two assets, but they don't do nothing. Your king is safe. But what if they also create one pass pawn on the queen side? That becomes a question. Now you notice something, right? If you give the move to black, they will play b4, takes, c3, and this guy is rolling slowly. Suddenly your queen needs to babysit, at least deal with that pawn on c3. The last thing you want in this position as white is a passer on the c file. Okay? Then the question is, how do we make a move, multi-purpose move, that both stops b4 but also improves our position? And you're a great player if you want to move queen d6. To me, queen d6 is the clincher, the simplest possible way to win, stopping all counterplay, stopping b4 to begin with, plus the queen wants to do queen c5 and b6. The queen invades the queen side. They will grab all the pawns, and we are winning by creating a pass pawn ourselves. I can give you a couple of moves here. Black has no real fight. If the rook leaves the 7th rank, then you love check, check, check. The pawn drops to the check, and now one more check, and the pawn is running, running, running. The king is also escaping. There are no perpetuals, and you promote on the next turn. This is winning for white. Instead, if you impulsively push the pawn to h4, then black plays the move b4. Counterplay. I managed to draw this position with the black pieces against several students of mine across the years in training games. Suddenly, this pawn is reaching c2, will be guarded by the bishop on b3, and now, well, it's equal actually. White has no win anymore. Imagine, the pawn is coming to c2, the queen needs to babysit the c1 square against the pawn promotion. Suddenly, right, black is the one who might even win its position if white is careless. You cause all the trouble to yourself by ignoring the opponent's resource. So we call these moves active prophylaxis. You need to become an active prophylactic player in a winning position, just like Karpov. You want a move that both improves your position, but crucially stopping counterplay by the opponent. At all times, you must ask yourself this crucial question: what would they play if I don't make a move right now? Even more so in a winning position, I would say. More care is required in those positions. Once the only counterplay move is stopped, white is all the time in the world as well, right, to push the passers. Once again, just like in the first position, you had all the time in the world in this position to roll the pawns. Why do you hurry? Do not hurry principle also applies here, and that's what we are learning in this position as well. In a winning position, usually we should not hurry, we should not rush, we should first and foremost carefully check for the opponent's resources, just like here, right? Once you notice resources like before, then you do your best to stop those resources, and once they come to an end, your play will begin anyhow. This brings us to the next point of simplification in a winning position. This game was played by one of my students, Segayeta, in the Co-Champs tournament. This game brings me painful memories because he lost in a competitive winning position, and we will discuss how he could have improved. Okay, first of all, white built a beautiful position. This d6 pawn is a weakness that is tying down the black pieces. The bishop is blunted by black's own pawn on e5, and now Segata finds this beautiful fork idea, and he plays the move knight a4. You see, knight b6 cannot be prevented, and white is winning an exchange by force. Beautiful move. Here we go. We win the exchange. White has the exchange plus positional advantages because of those terrible minor pieces, weakness on d6, everything is paralyzed for black as well. Okay, the game continues. Black plays this, b3, black plays queen b4. Now, I want you to stop the video, guys. Please tell me how white should play in this position. Imagine you're playing a rapid game, clock is ticking. What would be the most practical move for white? This would be the simplest possible way to convert the material advantage. Think about that. You already have the extra exchange. You already have the material advantage. Queen trade simplifies the position. You stop all counterplay as a result of the queens leaving the board, and you have all the positional advantages left in its position to, let's say, attack the pawn on d6 with moves like this and this, activate, maybe play c5 and crash through. You can even play the move c5 directly to be able to play rook d8 once they take. This game is completely finished as well because of this, guys, right? They cannot even like defend their position anymore. But once we came to this position, he played a beautiful game. Carlos started thinking. And I got worried when I was watching the game live. I was like, why is he thinking so much? The opponent is offering a queen trade himself in a completely lost position. After thinking for 1.5 minutes, Sega played the move rook c2. You see, he's thinking about nitty-fine details of the exchange. He wants them to take on d2, and after which he will make a rook on d2, right? He's suddenly overthinking in a position that simply calls for the simplest possible move. Queen trade and play this position quietly, normally, without any counterplay. And once he starts overthinking, I will show you very painfully how the game went. Even here, he could have exchanged the queens. He doesn't. He wants to find the very best move at all times. He thinks like an engine. He starts overthinking. And once we come to this position, black avoids the queen trade. And here my heart really sank when I was watching the game. I was like, if there's a lost chance suddenly, it's here. Sega suddenly allows him a chance to lose this position with white pieces, because in time scramble, who knows what that queen can do to us, right? So please never forget this lesson, folks. I will show you how the game ended as well. Well, he was still crushing. White's a crushing position. He finds all the good moves. By the way, I would still play the move queen c6 here, just to be able to simplify, trade the queens, and win this position as simple as possible without any counterplay. Rook c8 as well. Simplify, simplify, simplify. In a winning position with extra exchange, that's what you want. You want simplification to reduce counterplay. And once counterplay comes to an end, you have all the time in the world, even in a bullet game, to convert your advantages in the simplest possible way. Instead, Sega keeps the queens on the board. And now panic kicks in. Suddenly the queen is attacked. Suddenly he needs to find some accurate moves. Suddenly the queen invades our camp. Suddenly we need accuracy to convert. And we have only 1 minute left. Can you see my pain? Can you see my pain? Queens are still on the board. We have 45 seconds left here. And the game is slowly swinging. He's still winning, by the way. He's still winning by finding all the accurate moves. But since the queens are still on the board, this is not a given. We need to calculate. Queen d1, good move. Queen e3 check, back. Bishop g5, and here Sega, 20 seconds left in the co-champs tournament. First round, absolutely critical round that dictated the entire event. He doesn't see the threat on c1. He panics, he pushes b4, and we drop the rook on c1. Because of the queen, of course, right? He left the queens on the board, and we lost our rook as a result. And can you see my reaction here? Can you see, like, self-fulfilling prophecy? All my fears came to life. I sort of saw this coming the moment Sega started overthinking after the move queen b4. As a strong player myself, I would take the queens without second thought. I would thank my opponent first of all to give me the chance to trade the queens. I would take and I would enjoy this position because black has zero counterplay whatsoever with those sleeping pieces. We have all the time in the world to convert as simple as possible. What's the bigger lesson? When we have the material advantage, usually simplifications favor us. We need accuracy, of course, still. We need to be very careful in simplifying in the right way. We need calculation skills. But generally speaking, queens leaving the board is intensifying your advantage when you have the material advantage in chess. Just to consolidate this lesson, okay? Black to play. Black to play. Black has the extra bishop in his position. The queen is hit by the pawn. So, which square should the queen move into, guys? I will give you 3 choices. Queen g6, Queen g4, or Queen f5, okay? These are the only 3 moves anyhow for black. What's the most technical move for black? I want you to direct your attention to those 3 moves. I want you to also calculate one very short line to back up your analysis. Okay? Stop the video, please. Folks, we discussed the need of trading the queens when we have the material advantage. The last thing you want here is a queen and knight attacking combo, attacking your lonely king on d8. That's counterplay to my mind. So black's goal, first of all, is to find a way maybe to forcefully exchange the queens to stop all counterplay. But how? Is it this way, or this way? Can you notice that the king on h2 is sort of cut? The bishop is nicely stopping king g1s, and the h-file is also opened. So there are some checkmate ideas as well. So that's the final prompt that I'm giving you for this puzzle. Find a move that forcefully exchange the queens because of the checkmate idea. You're a great player, folks, if you found the move Queen g6. Queen g6 is the most technical finish because you basically say, please exchange the queens. If you don't exchange the queens, I will checkmate you by queen h5. Can you see? Short calculation, but you're looking at the right directions. The only way for white to keep the queens on the board is queen b7 or some other move, because there are no checks to be worried about by us, right? And this allows checkmate in one. Three-ply calculation ensures that white must exchange the queens after queen g6. And after queen g6 happens, you have all the time in the world to slowly convert this position. Bishop d4 can happen. Take the pawn, and this pawn is rolling as simple as possible. Your king is safe. That all comes down to it. Without the queens, you have no king safety problems, and the game plays itself. The game plays itself so smoothly from here. Can you see it? Well, in the actual game, they play the move queen g4. What's the problem? There is no check after queen g4. This square is already guarded. Suddenly, we are giving the tempo to white, and they can play knight f6. Suddenly, we need to worry about queen e8 checks. The knight is frozen on that d7 square because of the checkmate on d7. Suddenly, we need to play so accurately. For example, queen d1 is the only move that wins for black because of those ideas. And after this check, queen b5, you need to find the only move that wins for black. This needs real world calculation. This needs great calculation skills, and the move is knight d7, right? Because you defend the bishop, and if they take on d7 for this idea, if you take the bishop drops, the problem is queen h5 is checkmate. But can you see that? This line was first of all much longer to analyze, and you had to suffer to find the only resource, queen d1 first of all, and knight d7 to be able to win this position. By being lazy here, by not carefully calculating this queen g6 line, you made the task much more difficult on yourself. The same goes for queen f5, guys. You love knight f6, and there's no queen h5 checkmate anymore, and those checks are coming in. Black needs to find the only move, queen b1, to be able to win, but this involves so much calculation, right? Needless calculation. All these checks must be tried and checked by black. This is not good technique at all. So my point is, first of all, you need to read the board properly, set your strategic desire and goal properly, that my plan is to exchange the queens and simplify. And once it's set, you're searching for good moves, engaging in short calculations to give you what you want in the most clear-cut way. You must always be careful. Here in the final segment, I will show you a little exception to that rule I just mentioned. Many people, when they have the material advantage like this, like white has 2 extra pawns in this position, they simply, blindly exchange pieces because of that heuristic I just mentioned, right? I have 2 extra pawns, let's exchange and clarify. Well, what if I told you that there's a better move than this for white in this position? Please stop the video again, go deeper, find that better multi-purpose move for white that shows good technique to us. What's the right conversion from this position for white, folks? Yes, the move is rook e5. Rook e5, multifunctional. You want to bring the final guy to the party, and you don't take the pinned piece. The bishop is pinned anyhow in this position. Why do you ever exchange off a pinned piece in chess? Normally, you never want that, right? Think about that. Just let the opponent to spend one full tempo to unpin their bishop first, and then you can take on e7. Once rook e5 is on the board, black must stop this move. They must play the move king f8, and now you can take and you net one more pawn on f5. By playing more accurately, you got yourself one more pawn, and that's an important pawn because now white has 3 connected passed pawns on the king side, and this game is completely winning for white. You will simply roll the pawns, and black cannot survive this at all. This is the most simplest way to finish. Instead, if you don't play rook e5, but directly take on e7, then you might be still winning here, but you have to be much more careful to convert, because suddenly rook d8 and rook d2s are coming. You didn't manage to get 3 versus 0 on the king side. This needs more accuracy for white to convert this position. After king f1, this is still a winning position for white, but this is not as obviously winning as the line I just showed you by the multifunctional move rook e5, refusing to take the pinned bishop, improving first and only then taking it, right? Also shows us at all times we are searching for those strongest moves in chess, and even so in a winning position. Like a little finesse. You can call this move like a little finesse to get the maximum out of this position for white. This will be your homework position. I want you to first of all analyze the position, form a winning plan, please, for white. What will be your way to convert this position? Please lay down the plan. You can tell me a couple of moves, maybe 3 moves in a row for white, I will play this, this, and this with a clear evaluation in the end, okay? What will be your game plan? At first sight, it looks like it's a strange position because white pieces are also quite passive, it seems, but the picture will soon change if you find the right moves, okay? I want you to win the position by applying the techniques I show you today. Namely, mostly about tying down the opponent's pieces and then slowly improving step by step with minimal counterplay, okay? You can even try this against your training partner. Take the white pieces and try to convert this position against your training partners. That will give you great tools for the right technique in chess. And yes, there is one plan that is clearly winning for white. That's the most technical, but also the most logical. I also want you to explain to me why that plan is the most logical plan. I give feedback to each and every one of you on YouTube, so please take this chance and leave a comment there, and that always leads to fruitful discussion. If you like the video, folks, if you want me to produce similar content for you, please give me a like and subscribe to this channel and share the channel with a friend of yours who you think would benefit from its content. Thank you so much for your support, and I will catch you on the next one.